All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our next speaker. Are you ready? Did you have a good lunch? Did you have a good experience down in Daly Plaza? Are you enjoying the conference? You want to hear this man speak? You want me to shut up? Yes, you do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is a giant in the JF Conference assassination community. He's a giant literally and figuratively. 6'6". Tonight, Vince Palamara is going to be speaking on the Secret Service and JFK. Vince is the world authority on the Secret Service, has spoken to both medical personnel on duty in Dallas that day, as well as retired agents. He discovered that at least 3 Secret Service agents who crossed the line, past simple laziness or incompetence, and either cooperated with a conspiracy or allowed it to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Vincent Palamara. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for the enthusiastic intro, and thanks everyone for being here. Yeah, basically that's what it is. I said, what's your theory? Here's my fact. President Kennedy should have survived Dallas. It's as simple as that. And I have a lot of material, so we'll skip all the, get right to it. Okay. Now, the first thing is not technically a security issue, but it is a photo coverage, eyewitness issue, and the lack thereof in Dealey Plaza. Press photo coverage involving professional eye and ear witnesses was still in motion photography. Normally, a flatbed truck was in front of the presidential limousine. Here we are, Honolulu, Hawaii, June of '63. 2 flatbed trucks, notice the arrows, for the presidential limousine. You wouldn't have had to rely on amateurs like Abraham Zapruder, Orville Nix, everybody else. And obviously, professional eye and ear witnesses, there you go. So that's just Hawaii. Here we are in Berlin. Again, you have agents on the rear of the limousine. We'll get to that issue in a moment. But there it is, flatbed truck. And we'll get to the $64 million question why they weren't there in Dallas. Here is a live television feed in Rome, Italy in early July of '63. Yep, that gentleman right there is filming. And in front of him is the press photographers, still in motion photographers, filming the motorcade. There's also agents on the back of the limousine there as well, Gerald Blaine and David Grant. Here is one of my, I could have been up here all day. I figured I gotta weed this down as far as documents go. This is from Mexico, photographers poll, talking about how they'll be in front of the limousine. This was standard before Dallas. This was standard since the FDR days, FDR, Truman, Eisenhower, and Kennedy, before 1963, before November 22nd to be exact. They were there all the time. Okay. And here again, not only just the press photographers in front of the limousine, you had the press van very close by, press bus, very close behind. And besides, we'll get to this issue in a moment about the agents being on the rear of the car. There's Gerald Blaine of the Kennedy detail fame there. And there you go. And it makes you think, wow, if they would have been there in Dallas. But hold that thought for a moment. And again, I could have been up here. Very similar looking documents of many trips, especially in DC. This is the show, the pull trucks, which are the 2 flatbed trucks. Number 1's the presidential limousine. There's the wire service cars. These were all from the JFK library. And I can't stress enough, as I do with my President Kennedy in life photographs, a lot of these documents and photographs have only become available in the last 5 to 10 years. Really, actually last 7 and on. They weren't available for many, many years. So definitely something to ponder as far as, thank God for the internet and the digital age. A lot of stuff's come out. Here we are, 4 days before Dallas, Tampa. It's Chuck Zboril and Don Lawton walking with a limousine. And you might say, hey, who took this photograph, Vince? Well, that was the White House photographer, Cecil Stoughton. Either him or Robert Knudsen were always in the fob car. And they were there up to, hey, the day before San Antonio. And hey, what's his view from? Oh, it's only from a police helicopter. Was filming the motorcade. Nothing to see here. See? But press coverage the day before, they were filming the motorcade from a police helicopter. This is San Antonio, Texas, and again, it's the day before the assassination. There is Cecil Stoughton taking his photograph. There's even a close-up view there. Yet in Dallas, in the interest of time, I'm not going to read this whole thing, Tom Dillard was forceful about this on C-SPAN in 1993, saying we lost our position at the airport. It was canceled at the last minute. Flatbed trucks. He was very forceful about this on C-SPAN. This is his sworn Warren Commission testimony that normally a flatbed truck precedes the motorcade, and they weren't there. And it was a Secret Service that canceled the flatbed truck. So there you go. What need amateurs like Abraham Zapruder and everybody else? And this is an interesting news article just saying President Kennedy's administration, it was argued by some of the television cameras, could not get a good view of the president in the parade. It was also noted the Secret Service men were not pleased around the president as closely as they have been on other occasions. This is a very important issue here. Secret Service agents often walked, jogged, or ran with the limousine, or actually rode on the rear of President Kennedy's limousine. And here's the surprising, the bubble top was used in a third of all of JFK's motorcades, often in good weather. It wasn't just rain. Here's Roy Kellerman, Dallas fame, and Bob Lilly. Okay, I spoke to Robert Lilly. He told me that, President Kennedy never interfered with our actions at all. Whatever he wants, the way it will be. He told us on election night, and he was with him from election night 1960 until October of 1963 when he got transferred. Riding on the back of the limousine, they reached speeds of 50 miles an hour. This is in Puerto Rico. No rain, beautiful, very hot conditions. They were going up to upwards of 50 miles an hour with the bubble top on. Here we are, early July '63, again in Rome. David Grant on near JFK. David Grant was Clint Hill's brother-in-law. And Gerald Blaine of the Kennedy Detail book fame. And in the back of the car, beautiful motorcycle formation. Again, the back of your mind should always be, wow, imagine if this was in Dallas. And why it wasn't in Dallas, we'll get to that in a moment. This is another segment of the different vehicle of the Italy trip. There they are again. What's unstated in these photographs is obviously the press photographers are filming it. It's right in front of the motorcade too. Not amateurs, in this case it's life. Here we are in Bogota, Colombia. Roy Kellerman and Bob Lilly again on the back of the car. There's a full bubble top, closed follow-up car, good motorcycle formation, guards on either side, armed forces guards. Going at a pretty fast clip too. Here's the late when Lawson just passed away in front of the limousine. There's Art Godfrey, JFK, walking with the limousine. There's Agent Bill Duncan. These are different trips. This is South Dakota, walking with the limousine, Kennedy. Here's 4 days before Dallas. Chuck Zaboral and Don Lawton working on the back of the limousine. Don Lawton told me, and you'll hear the clip in a moment, he said, we always had regrets, remorse. Who knows, if they only would have left guys in the back of the car. You can hindsight yourself to death. The they is the Secret Service, nobody else. Not boogeymen, not the FBI, it's the Secret Service. Here we are in Germany, 2 agents on the rear of the car. Another segment of the Germany trip, 2 agents on the rear of the car. This is Hawaii, agents running with the car, like in a diamond formation. A lot of them Ron Pontius and some other agents. Here's New Orleans, again, agents walking with the car, jogging with the car. Here we are in Los Angeles, 1963. Agent Bob Lilly again, probably a well-meaning woman, well-wisher, but still brushed her away for Kennedy's protection. Here we are in North Carolina, agents surround a limousine. And here again, here's the bubble top. Can't stress this enough. President Kennedy used the bubble top in approximately 1/3 of all his motorcades. And it wasn't in bad weather, it was good weather trips. He's smiling, all this stuff about, he didn't like the bubble top, all mythology, all Jim Bishop, William Manchester, pardon the word crap, after the fact, blaming Kennedy for everything. You know, he was assassinated, his character was assassinated, and hey, let's blame him for the assassination too. Stupid. Here's the bubble top again, bright sunshiny day. Here's the bubble top and agents running the limousine. This is North Dakota this time. Hey, here's our buddy again, Roy Kellerman. This is the partial bubble top, and this is an option that was not explored in Dallas. Imagine if they would have had the rear piece on and left that middle piece open so Kennedy could intermittently stand and wave and whatnot. That's an option that could have been explored. In the interest of time, I'll just let you know that Secret Service agent Sam Kinney was the driver of the follow-up car. I spoke to him 3 times. He was adamant to me that he, Sam, was solely responsible for the bubble top's removal. He said Kennedy had nothing to do with it. I said, what about Kenny O'Donnell? He's blamed like us. Kenny O'Donnell, nothing to do with it. I am the sole responsibility of that, and I've had to live with that at that time. He said for 30 years. I spoke to him in the early 90s 3 times. And yeah, so there you go. And here we are in Philadelphia, the partial bubble top again, rearward piece, front piece. There's Kennedy. Yeah, you could stand up and wave every once in a while. They're also good at a good clip too. It wasn't like they were going 11 miles an hour. Here's the full bubble top again. You see the military aid in between the driver and the agent in charge. This was sent to me by a nice lady on Facebook. That's her dad guarding the bubble top limousine used in Duluth in September of 1963. This is a nighttime motorcade in West Virginia, September of 63, just a couple days later, West Virginia, and here's JFK in a bubble top, smiling. I thought he didn't like that bubble top. Didn't mind it, no rain, no nothing. Is it Chicago? Oh, there's the bubble top again. Mayor Daley, hey, here's JFK smiling. I thought he didn't like the bubble top. Here it is again at a military base in the South. I'm not exactly sure right off. I think it might be Tennessee, but in any event, there's the partial bubble top. There's the Washington, D.C. bubble top. 1 month before the assassination, there's the partial bubble top, front and rear piece. The windows rolled up slightly. Imagine if that would have been there in Dallas. Again, it's the Secret Service who's in control of all this. It's not the FBI. It's not boogeymen. It's not the mafia. The Secret Service is in control of all this. And there's agents surrounding the car in the Orange Bowl, Miami. There's Agent Bert DeFries in the back of the car with the full bubble top in Ireland, of all places. There's Agent Walt Coughlin, named these men because I spoke to them, in England with the bubble top. There's agents in the back car in Boston, I think somewhere around mid-October, 63. There's Mexico, Clint Hill in his jackie in the back of the car, full bubble top, running with a limousine, scorching hot day, no rain. Oh, Kennedy didn't mind the bubble top again. Take Jim Bishop going to Manchester office of the War Report with a huge grain of salt. Don't believe that stuff about blaming Kennedy. He's not around to defend himself. Yet in Dallas, Kennedy is literally a sitting duck. Look at that. No motorcycles by the car, no agents, obviously no bubble top, no nothing. I mean, somebody in the crowd could have threw something at him. That's terrible, terrible. Okay, and here is, look at these arrows. First one, furthest on the left, is Don Lawton. The other agent is Hank Ribka. The other one's Jack Reddy. And there's a little confusion. Part of the confusion is by myself. For the longest time, I got the two agents confused. I thought it was Don Lawton, it was Henry Ribka. Oh no, it turned out it was both agents were actually there walking, jogging in a limousine. It's only Don Lawton that shows up with the more famous video footage we'll get to in a second here. Here they are. This is on the left, Agent Ribka. In front of him is Don Lawton walking with a limousine. I discovered this in 1991. Obviously I didn't film it, but discovered in 1991 raw footage from WFAA, the ABC affiliate in Dallas. It was just raw footage, and also I'm watching the motorcade. I'm like, what's going on? Why is he waving his hand 3 times, and the other agent's like pulling him away, it looked like. And here we go. Let's see here. Get this video going. Hold on a second. Be with you in a second. Just turn that on.
Number 3, in response to political staff, agents who usually surround the limousine were pulled away so people could see the president better. One reacted by throwing up his hands in disgust. 3 times he protested, what would prove to be a fatal error. Kennedy was killed by the 3rd shot from a sniper rifle, well after agents, if they had been nearby, could have pulled him out of harm's way. Number 3, in response to political staff, agents who usually surround the limousine were pulled away so people could see the president better. One reacted by throwing up his hands in disgust. 3 times he protested, what would prove to be a fatal error. Kennedy was killed by the 3rd shot from a sniper rifle, well after agents, if they had been nearby, could have pulled him out of harm's way.
Just a brief note on that. That was Discovery Channel, Secrets of the Secret Service. I was a researcher on that, and yeah, it was actually almost like an official Secret Service documentary. They had actual real Secret Service agents of the present time, at that time, 10 years ago, and some former ones. And to my great amazement, they included that video clip. I didn't think they would touch it with a 10-foot pole, and they put that in there. And again, why was that agent being waved away? There you go. It was a Secret Service decision.
Number 3.
And then, again, imagine if those agents would have been there. Protective function. At the very least, a rear shot would have been blocked, even a frontal shot. They could have witnessed something. They could have jumped on them, prevent it. You know, less people around, less professional eye and ear witnesses. Got to think of that factor as well. Here we are, September of 1960. Well, we'll get this now. JFK and LBJ, oh, they rode in 2 official motorcades together. Dallas, okay, the Texas trip, and also when he was a candidate. And there's, you know, there's the local armed forces next to him and whatnot. He didn't mind them back then. And here we are, he's shaking hands with Chief Curry. And even though Secret Service were not officially warranted with, you know, guarding the presidents at that time or presidential candidates, there is an agent right there from the local field office, and behind him on the other side are other agents in armed forces and police. And again, he didn't mind that when he was running for the presidency in 1960 in Dallas. Gets hit, you know, 3 years later, another motorcade, LBJ, first time since then, and there's nothing. And in the interest of time, I'll just kind of go through this a little bit. But again, I spoke to these gentlemen starting in early 1990s. It's before the internet really kicked in. There was computer bulletin boards, but basically, I was just an amateur stranger on the phone calling these guys. They lived in all parts of the country. I was a little amateur me. I was only in my mid-20s at the time. Didn't have a book out. Didn't have hardly anything. Nobody really knew who I was. And I just asked them the same thing. And they kept on like they were reading cue cards. The #1 agent of the White House detail, well, I'll get to him in a second. I'll get to James Riley. Chief, no president will tell the Secret Service what they can or cannot do. That's what he testified under oath to the Warren Commission. Okay? Actually, this... okay, now I'm on the right spot. Okay, yeah, President, this is basically debunking the whole idea about the president being the boss of the Secret Service, which isn't true. And there you go. And then his predecessor, Huey Ballman, said the same thing, that he could legally countermand a direct decision by the president. This is a story that came out in the AP November 15th, 1963. It stated that the Secret Service can overrule even the president where his personal security is involved. George McNally, former agent, agreed. Again, in the interest of time, Mike Riley, Bill Carter. Harry Truman agreed, said the Secret Service was the only boss the President of the United States really had. Lyndon Johnson's on record saying the same thing. Bill Clinton, quoting those 2 gentlemen in 1999 in dedication to the Secret Service building in D.C., said the same thing. I have to agree, that's true. They are the only boss we have. No boss when it comes to security, mind you. Okay. And again, just more of the same in the interest of time. Basically just saying the same thing. You know, there's contemporary news articles saying that this whole thing, people have a tendency to think it's very natural thing. Hey, he's the commander-in-chief, he's the president of the United States. A little Secret Service, come on. When it comes to the president's security, the Secret Service is boss, not the other way around. So don't believe Bishop Manchester, Gerald Blaine, or Clint Hill in their books about that. Not true. Again, Kennedy ordering agents off the limit. This is what I was about to get to before when I was talking about the agents I spoke to. The #1 agent of the White House detail, Gerald Blaine. I don't remember Kennedy ever saying that he didn't want anybody in the back of his car. You talk about a moment that made me want to drop the phone in shock. You know, David Lifton talks about the Seibert and O'Neill report, you know, was his linchpin moment. He couldn't believe the surgery of the head area. He was reading this. When he told me this on the phone, I'm stammering. I can't believe it. I don't remember Kennedy ever saying he wanted anybody in the back of his car. This is the #1 agent with Kennedy he was with the Secret Service from FDR to LBJ, but he was with Kennedy from election night up to, well, he wasn't there at the time. He was on vacation, but we'll get to that in a moment. #2 agent, Floyd Bourne, was adamant to me 3 different times. JFK was very easygoing. He didn't interfere with our actions at all, never did. He was a very nice man. And he said the same thing. And Bill Adams, I don't know, whatever happened to this researcher from California 20 years ago, good guy. Him and I pried out of the JFK Library release of Floyd Bourning's 1976 oral history of the JFK Library. And he says that JFK and his staff were very cooperative with the Secret Service. Nothing about, oh, he ordered us off the car and all this other stuff. The advance agent for Dallas wrote to me in a letter from 2004, I don't know of any standing orders for the agent to stay off the back of the car. It never came to my attention as such. Winston Lawson was the lead advance agent. If anybody's going to know about it, would be him. He didn't know. Phew. Art Godfrey, same thing. Shift leader. These are the brass of Secret Service. Not like little, like Gerald Blaine is a buck private. These are the guys who are, the top guys. He's saying the same thing. There's no truth to this thing about Kennedy ordering us off the car. It's baloney. C.M. Kinney, driver of the fob car in Dallas, Tampa, and many other stops, said the same thing. Oh no, there's no truth to that at all. And you'll get to hear some of these audio clips in a moment. Bob Lilly, like I mentioned before, he was extremely cooperative. Whatever you guys want is the way it will be. Don Lawton, he said, not only did he say to me that, if only they would have left guys in the back of the car, you can hindsight yourself to death. He also, in 2013, it came out in an article, a woman friend of his that was in the Army said that, he always regretted not being in the back of the car. I should have been there. I should have been there. Dave Powers, arguably Kennedy's best friend on countless motorcades, said the same thing. In a letter to me from 1993, the agents never had to be told to get off the back of the car. And two researcher friends of mine, independently of myself, spoke to Dave Powers and conveyed the same thing to me. And they were excited when they read it. Vince, you're not going to believe he said the same thing to me. I actually spoke to him at the JFK library in the 80s and 90s, whatnot. Says, oh no, he didn't have time for that. He's too busy running the government to look back with his bad back. I don't want you guys on the back of the car. People don't think about the logistics of this stuff. And again, it's just more, this whole thing about Kennedy ordering agents off the limo is debunked. Sam Solomon I spoke to, Frank Stoner, Gerald O'Rourke, agents on the Texas trip, Vincent Bras, famous for protecting Truman during his assassination attempt, Larry Newman. Here's an interesting one. Gerald Blaine, the author of the Kennedy Detail, years before his book came out, said, JFK was very cooperative. He didn't interfere with our actions. President Kennedy was very likable. He never had a harsh word for anyone. He never interfered with our actions at all. And when I relayed to him this thing, if you ever read William Manchester's book, The Death of a President, is a big deal made about, supposedly Kennedy said, get these Ivy League charlatans off the back of my car. A lot of agents said it wasn't true. He just said, I heard it from the guys. I can't remember who said it. I can't remember. You might say, okay, what's the importance of that, Vince? Blaine's memory got a whole lot better 5 years later in his book. He said, I heard it loud and clear over my walkie-talkie. President Kennedy said, get those Ivy League charlatans off the back of the car. But he told little old me about 6 years before, I heard it from the guys. I can't remember who said it. And what really kills it is Florida Congressman Sam Gibbons, in a letter from me from 2004, I rode with Kennedy every time he rode. I heard no such order. As I remember it, the agents rode on the rear bumper all the way. Kennedy was very happy during his visit to Tampa. And this is amazing. The audio is real bad. It's on my YouTube channel, so I didn't put a clip of that. But Rocky Stone, Fort Worth, Texas policeman, that day on NBC, he said, and you can read this for yourself, but I'll just basically, he said, and again, he little slip of the tongue the way he spoke, so there's a little bit of weird grammar, but he said, they said that he always went by their decisions to protect him, that he was always considerate of their fact, that he never tried to do anything that they thought was against the rules in which to protect him. And again, they had nothing but praise for President Kennedy, his manner in which he felt about the Secret Service men. They said he was by far the most considerate of them and their feelings than any other president. But if you read Bishop Manchester, the Warren Report, Blaine's book, and even Clint Hill's book, you come away with, wow, shame Kennedy died, but man, it's not like he had it coming to him. He didn't want these agents by the car. He didn't want the bubble top. He didn't want the motorcycles by the car. It's all nonsense. And here is 2010. I guess he was thinking about posterity. And yeah.
Well, he can tell you what he wants done, and he can tell you certain things, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we used to do was always agree with the president, then we do what we felt was best anyway. Well, he can tell you what he wants done, and he can tell you certain things, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And what we used to do was always agree with the president, then we do what we felt was best anyway.
So again, he's basically been there. Yeah, we'd always agree with the president. We'd do what we felt was best anyway. The president wasn't the boss of the Secret Service, and even if he wanted to, I think he was being just a little jovial about it, but they did what they were going to do anyway. President Kennedy was thinking about his speech. He was thinking about legislation. He was thinking about world events with his bad back even. The last thing he was thinking about is, why is our Godfrey back there? Get him off that car. People believe that stuff. Can't believe it. And yeah, we'll play these. Now, some of the audio is a little up and down. Keep in mind, early 90s, phone connections and whatnot. But yeah, some of the actual interviews, and all these gentlemen have passed away. Yeah, Sam Kinney, driver of the follow-up car, which you can see, there he is. I'll play this in a moment. And Floyd Boring and Gerald Bain. And yeah, they're all denying to me that President Kennedy ever ordered him off the car.
One of the other things I found out interestingly enough is there's no truth to this thing about supposedly Kennedy ordered the agents off the back of the limousine.
No, he had nothing to do with that.
I figured that, because you know what? William Manchester makes the claim that Floyd Boring was ordered by Kennedy, and I'm quoting what it says in the book, it says, keep those Ivy League charlatans off the back of my car.
That is false.
Yes, I don't take it as the gospel, but I know other people have. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it repeated where President Kennedy told the agents, I guess yourself and other people, get these men off my limousine, don't do this.
That's true.
Okay.
Very nice man.
Yeah, it's...
Never interfered with us at all.
That's...
I had been on the trip before. Trip where the last vacation he had.
Oh, okay, the one in Florida.
That's right.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, there's something relating in his book about that, too. Supposedly, he makes it out like President Kennedy was real authoritarian and ordered the men off the back of the limousine.
No, that's not true.
I didn't think that was either. Yeah, Rufus Youngblood, it was one of the things he told me. He says that don't believe Manchester or Bishop. It's
Kennedy didn't say that. He didn't want anybody on the back of the car.
Head of the White House.
Yeah, definitely take the one from Kennedy didn't say that. He didn't want anybody on the back of the car. Kennedy didn't say that. He didn't want anybody on the back of the car. Well, I know that, but you still have regrets, remorse, whatever. Who knows if they left guys on the back of the car or something. You never know. You second guess. You can hindsight yourself to death. You know what I mean? Well, I know that, but you still have regrets, remorse, whatever. Who knows if they left guys on the back of the car or something. You never know. You second guess. You can hindsight yourself to death.
This is the lead advanced agent for Dallas, Winston Lawson. Keep in mind, the lead advanced agent for Dallas, Winston Lawson. This is an amazing letter he wrote me in January 12th, 2004. I do not know of any standing orders for the agents to stay off the back of the car. After all, foothold and handholds were built into that particular vehicle. I am sure it would have been on a case-by-case basis depending on the event, intelligence, threats, etc. Keep in mind, ostensibly, officially, allegedly, there were no threats found in Dallas. Jerry Bain, a special agent in charge of the White House detail, as it was known then, Presidential Protective Division currently, would have been privy to that type of info more than I. See my other video where Bain adamantly denies that President Kennedy ever ordered the agents off the car. However, it never came to my attention as such. I am certain that agents were on the back on certain occasions. Again, I do not know of any standing orders for the agents to stay off the back of the car. However, it never came to my attention as such. This totally debunks the Kennedy detail. Here's the fateful Tampa motorcade of November 18th, 1963. This is Congressman Sam Gibbons. There's JFK, Senator Smathers, Agent Don Lawton, Agent Chuck Zaboril, Agent Floyd Boring, Agent Bill GREER. Let's focus on Congressman Gibbons. What did Congressman Gibbons have to say about the whole notion of JFK allegedly ordering the agents off the car in Tampa? Here's what he told me in this letter dated January 15th, 2004, years before the Kennedy detail saw the light of day. I rode with Kennedy every time he rode. I heard no such order.
As I remember it, the agents rode on the rear bumper all the way. Kennedy was very happy during his visit to Tampa. Sam Gibbons. This is an amazing letter from Dave Powers, arguably JFK's best friend for years and the former curator of the JFK Library. September 10th, 1993. Okay. Also, unless they were running along beside the limo, the Secret Service rode in a car behind the president. So no, they never had to be told to get off the limo.
And some actual clips of motorcades here. Interesting time. I thought it would be good to play these clips and show some of the letters. One thing the guy at a lectern is in there and tell you that'd be good to have, even with some of the audio visual. Yeah, some of the audio goes up and down depending on the source, but actually hear them. And again, a lot of these gentlemen, well, all these gentlemen have passed away now, so.
Thus, the motorcade through the streets of Berlin began. The entire route was lined with people who had waited hours to see the president, the man dedicated to the defense of peace and freedom. Never before had the Berlin
Agents on the rear of the car, standard stuff. The audio is not important on these clips. They're just, you got the Irish jig music in there. It's from Trip to Ireland. Hey, there's the press pool in front, filming the motorcade. Look at all those motorcycles. In a moment, you'll see some of my, I like to call them friends, but I don't know if they think of me that way, but some of the former agents, Sam Solomon, Gerald Blaine of the Kennedy detail, Ron Pontius, Win Lawson's also on the back of the car there. They're using the fob car because the limousine broke down. I think it was in Belfast, one of the legs of the trip. Sometimes you'll see the SX-100, sometimes you'll see the halfback. Here we are in Italy. It's Win Lawson on the left getting on the back of the car. There's Gerald Blaine of the Kennedy detail. Ooh, forget you saw that clip. Gerald Blaine said that they weren't supposed to be on the back of the car. Ooh. Note the sarcasm.
Was killed. The Secret Service agents normally walk directly beside the car on either side. We do not see any in this photograph, but usually 2 or 3 Secret Service agents will walk on either side of the car so that they are there to spot anyone who looks like a troublemaker.
That was from that day. It's Ron Gardner. And this is amazing. This came out a few years ago on YouTube. Again, the audio is not important for this part. This is JFK's trip to San Diego. And you're going to see, and they're even going to note it in the narration in a moment, a whole bunch of Marines on each side of the street. You're going to see the press buses and front press flatbed trucks, I should say.
Knowing that the president's about to go by. The band in the background, Crawford High School band, striking up. Hoping that the president will be here any moment and wanting to
You can see them right there. The narrator says they're 5 or 6 feet apart.
May I again point out that the picture you see is not from 54th and El Cajon.
The 2 press trucks, including a live mobile feed, still in motion photography, and more importantly, Marines facing the crowd 5 to 6 feet apart.
It's from a vantage point about 4 blocks west of where we are, looking west and seeing the first of the motorcade as it goes by. And that's part of the crowd lining the streets, lots of children, the Marines with their hands full. The motorcycle officer, I understand, has been instructed to make sure that everybody does not get out into the street. No reports of whether or not he has run over any toes or not, but doing a good job of keeping them by. Now, the presidential motorcade is approaching 54th and El Cajon. Everybody here is on his feet. The people are beginning to cheer. The people behind me are, of course, quite expectant.
And get a little sneak preview of something you'll see in a second. Again, the audio is not important.
First car coming by our camera at 54th and El Cajon.
Building rooftops were often guarded between the FDR and JFK days. That's another reason why it looks like a sitting duck in a car, and he wasn't.
Secret Service agents normally walk directly beside the car on either side. We do not see any in this photograph. But usually 2 or 3 Secret Service agents will walk on either side of the car so that they are there to spot anyone who looks like a troublemaker.
Now keep in mind, in the nation's grief, all those details are going out one ear out the other. Like my mom and dad told me, you're still doing great. Said, Vinny, 9 people could have killed Kennedy. We were so consumed with grief. Those details you're throwing at me that day, when one ear not the other, about agents not being by the car, we didn't think those thoughts. We didn't care we lost our president. So it's only years later, looking in hindsight, you hear, what's Ron Gardner talking about there? And there you go. This is, you saw a still photo of it, but this is, again, all through the South American trip, the bubble tops in the back car, no rain, agents on the back of the car. Armed forces were on both sides.
Look at that. Unbelievable.
So my narration, I guess you can tell these are YouTube videos of mine put together. But
and you see the excellent motorcycle formation. Press was in front of the car and by the car. Press photographers. And here we go. Look at that.
Even if people out there think that there was one shooter from the rear, imagine if they would have been on the back of the car and these security measures. Kennedy lives. It's just another assassination attempt like Reagan and Ford and Truman.
Notice the excellent security for President Kennedy. Agents on the back of the car, bubble top, great motorcycle formation, military and police lining street facing the crowd.
Is basically Puerto Rico, Bogota, Colombia, Caracas, yeah, Costa Rica later on. Okay, that's basically it for those clips. And then, yeah, we got this all there. And then, oh, this is interesting. I'm always on their mind. That's a Willie Nelson song. I'm always on Clint Hill and Gerald Blaine's mind. We'll see this in a second here. Get this going. Here we go.
This is a man named Vince Palamara. Do you know him?
I'm familiar with him. I don't know him.
He says that, I guess, we'll talk about this, that he sent you a 22-page letter.
I recall receiving a letter which...
And this man's name is Vince Palamara. He is a citizen who has taken it on his own to become an expert. He's from Pennsylvania, and I don't know him. I've never talked to him. I've just seen it on the web. And he is, I believe he's a graduate of Duquesne University. So let's watch this and I'll get your reaction to it.
There never would have been a book if I didn't send a 22-page letter, okay, to Clint Hill that pissed him off so much that his very good friend Jerry Blaine came out with this book as a counter. It's very obvious it's a thinly veiled attempt to rewrite history and to blame President Kennedy without trying to blame him for his own assassination.
The fellow we talked about in the last interview, Vince Palamara, you've seen his letter? No, he's been critical of...
Well, I'll accept his endorsement.
Are you worried that he's being...
Well, maybe he has some secret agenda, I don't know.
Secret agenda, huh?
This is a man...
Like I said, a little old amateur me out in the wilderness, but here's Gerald Blaine and Clint Hill with their buddy Brian Lamb, the CEO, and they got to bring up little old amateur me. I didn't know. It's, if you watch the videos and the whole, it's out of context. I talk about Jackie in Pakistan and blah, 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 and John Jr. and this gentleman, Vince Palamara. And then it comes up again. Second time, my wife and I, Amanda, were watching 2012. They won't mention me again. Come on. And there's these beautiful stories about Mrs. Kennedy and me, which actually is a really nice book other than a few pages about the assassination out of nowhere. This gentleman, Vince Palamara, do you remember him from the last time we spoke? This is before my first book was out. And I didn't even have a book published yet. I was just the amateur out in the woods, you know? And I was like, phew. And thou protestest too much? Why were they doing that? And here's the thing. This is the big discovery. If I'd say one of my big discoveries is building rooftops were normally guarded. FDR, Truman, Ike, and JFK eras. This is when, you have to search newspaper archives for it. This is Pittsburgh, 1944. 10,000 policemen were stationed along the motorcade's route. Rooftops were ordered to spectators. Okay, and you can read the rest there, the old Roosevelt smile. You might say, oh, okay, I always like to throw a little devil's advocate. Hey, I was doing World War II. Okay, yeah, whatever. Well, here's Truman. Uh-oh, World War II's over. And they're still scattered throughout the crowds. Police guard every street. And then, more importantly, building rooftops again. Here he is. You have to pay money through newspaper.com, I think it's called. You get these, but there you go. 1959, Eisenhower. You know, look at this. Even the manhole covers were battened down, and the suspicious strangers were not barred from buildings and rooftops. You might say, okay, that's good. What about JFK? Here you go. This is from a book from 1962, long out of print, called What Does a Secret Service Agent Do? Like I said, long out of print. 1962, the year before Kennedy's assassinated. And this will be blown up in a second. But the thing is, This book would not have been written without the cooperation of Chief Raleigh, who's pictured, and Chief Inspector Michael Torina, who I also corresponded with. Chief Inspector Michael Torina wrote the Secret Service manual. So if anybody in the world would know about proper procedures, he would. And again, this is an over-the-counter book, albeit it's been out of print since like the early 70s. And who cared about these things other than me back then, but that's another story. If the president is to appear in a parade, agents and policemen are assigned posts atop buildings and on the street along the parade route. Just digest that for a moment. Wow, that says it all. And then obviously other tremendous information. Exceptionally large crowds are expected. The Secret Service may call upon the armed forces to station troops along the line of march. Agents of the White House detail ride in the same car. Others will walk or trot alongside, while still others ride the automobile in front of them behind the presidential car. This was standard stuff. And again, what should be in the back of your mind is, look, it's a Bruder film. There's like no one by the car. It looks like a sitting duck. Gee, I wonder why. This is 4 days before Dallas. This only came out in the late 1990s thanks to the ARB, thanks to Oliver Stone's JFK and the JFK Act. This only came out in like 1999. This is the Tampa Final Survey Report. The Sheriff's Office secured the roofs of major buildings in the downtown and suburban areas. Now, obviously, we know officially those buildings weren't Garden, Dallas, or Dealey Plaza, or Main Street, or nothing. There's spectators all hanging out of the windows. No big garden rooftops, but this was the longest domestic motorcade President Kennedy ever had. 28 miles. And I also spoke to Russell Groover, who was the lead motorcycle officer in Tampa. He said, oh yeah, there was on every multi-story building, there was armed guards with shotguns and Thompson submachine guns ordered to shoot if anything got out of control. And he started out, he goes, oh, we want to make sure that our boys weren't in there on harm's way, but they had a diamond formation, which was much better in Dallas. And I said, well, okay, multi-story. Well, what about single dwellings? Since we had the military and the police lining the route to cover them, because they were more at eye level, like as ranch level, but anything 2 stories and up, they were guarded by, and again, it's not going to be in photographs a lot of time. I have a few, but usually people are looking at Kennedy. They're not looking up there and, hey, look at that armed forces guy. That's like Arnold Rawlin. Some other people testified about, well, they thought it was Secret Service guards. So some people knew that that was standard procedure back then, but it's an amazing document, only 20 years ago. This is from Pittsburgh, PA, in the interest of time. Basically, it says here, when he came to Pittsburgh, all the buildings, culverts, bridges were guarded. They had armed detectives ordered to shoot if anybody even opened a window and whatnot. And it's again before the assassination, not after, not as a result of the assassination. Oh, you're looking back with rose-colored glasses, Vince. It's only because of the assassination they did these things. They did this since the FDR days. There's a reason presidents survived before Dallas. Guard of 35,000 line streets to assure the president's safety, and helicopter manned the route during the entire motorcade. This is amazing, this one. President will have plenty of protection while abroad. The actual article isn't real meaty. It's good, but you might say, well, that headline's amazing, but what's it say? Nothing really amazing until this part. They asked local authorities to put police on top of buildings and along the streets. Bridges get special attention. Again, they asked local authorities to put police on tops of buildings, July '63. Interesting subnote about that article, when it was published by the Associated Press, many times that paragraph was omitted. It was only when I, again, paid money through newspapers.com, to my shock, I came across it and I thought, I already have this one. What? By buildings? Like, what's this about? And the rest is history. So a lot of times that wasn't even advertised. Maybe it slipped out and the Secret Service didn't like that. JFK went to Nashville. The Nashville Banner, Bill Adams, good researcher friend of mine from like 20 years ago, he got me the original Nashville Banner newspaper. Kind of disintegrated through the years. It was yellow and falling apart, but it had this in here. And thank God in 2013, JFK Nashville was published by the Nashville Banner, and thank God they had this reproduced. There it is. The men took their posts at 8 a.m. and remained at their rooftop stations until the president and his party passed. Even if there's some out there that think, well, I kind of think one person did do it, Vince, sorry. All right, have your one person. I don't believe that, but let's say it. Building rooftops are manned, history's changed. There you go. Obviously, I believe there's conspiracy, but I would like to throw it out for the Doubting Thomases. Again, interest of time. Spot on rooftops. Now, this is the inaugural. To be fair, complete survey of all buildings, water main, sewers, underground conduits. Thousands of troops guarded his routes. Here he is in Seattle. Got the two arrows about rooftops, building rooftops guarded. Here it is, an unannounced rout, some manning rooftops. Here is in Paris, rooftops again. And this picture's those little arrows up there are actually the Paris police, the gendarmerie, I guess they're called. They were all on all the rooftops there. This came out December '63 and really angered the Secret Service. Former Chief Baumann, rule violation cited in JFK assassination, clearing of buildings on parade route called fundamental. And he said this was true in Washington, D.C. motorcades, and also all out-of-town motorcade routes. Chief Baumann saying that. Phew. But again, this is before Woodward and Bernstein, before the details. People cared about things back then, before tabloid press. You know, people, it was a more innocent time. People believed things they read about, and something like that would have went in one ear and not the other. Yet in Dallas, does it even be said, rooftops weren't guarded. It is basically an article after the fact, a couple of days later, saying, the decision to post policemen or other agents on rooftops and in buildings always is one that must be weighed against the manpower requirements. So it acknowledges that it was something that would happen, but trying to make excuses for him. Meantime, 28-mile motorcade in Tampa. Multi-story, they're all armed guards everywhere. Police motorcycles normally rode in great numbers all around the limousine. I'm going to speed this up. I only have a little more. And it says 65 cycles, 65 motorcycles. Do I even have to say how many were around the limousine in Dallas? Look at this Zapruder film. Here we are in England. Here we are in France. Here we are in Rome. There's another thing in Rome here. This is Tampa going very fast. That's why it's blurry. That's Agent Chuck Zapruder in the back of the car. Here we are in Germany. Here we are in Milwaukee, and I love this. Police Captain Dahl said, we have to police the tops of buildings too, and all bridges and viaducts along the route. There it is, matter of factly, there it is. There's the down formation, but note that thing about the buildings again. Buffalo, New York, row of motorcycles, Buffalo, New York. Here we are in New York, New York, all surrounded. Good police by limo. Here we are in New York again. Here we are, these are different trips in New York. This is Tampa. Look at that beautiful, in Russell Groover, the gentleman I mentioned before in the lead. Here's San Antonio, Texas, the day before. Look at the rows. The House Select Committee made a great deal about this, uniquely insecure in Dallas. Indeed, look at the rows of motorcycles. And we already knew the police helicopter was manning a ride overhead filming. There's San Antonio again. Look at Houston. Look at that. Unbelievable. Yet in Dallas, the day before, November 21st, there were supposed to be 2 more motorcycles on each side. They weren't there. They were called away by the Secret Service, which Belford Lawson, the House Select Committee, noted was a unique occurrence, and in the final draft, he said it was a uniquely insecure. There's Mr. Lawson, who felt that 8 motorcycles were too many, so he moved them aside. There's Marion Baker of the Dallas Police Department said, yeah, they didn't want us by the car, testified to the Warren Commission. So did B.J. Martin. They instructed us that they didn't want anyone riding past the president's car, and we were to ride to the rear of his car. I think that's all, officer. Kind of reminds you of Zapruder. Oh, that's enough, Mr. Zapruder, about shots coming from behind. Armed detective, again, I'll speed this up, but usually was a police detective's car in the motorcade. Again, this is just depicting that. In Chicago, they did get wind of a threat in Chicago. Again, there was prior threats before Dallas. Don Lawton rode on the back of the car. They had 6 motorcycles around the limousine, and they had a detective's car filled with armed men. Here they are in Pittsburgh, armed men in a detective's car. Here they are in Costa Rica, a jeep with military men and military men surrounding the agents surrounding the limousine. In Dallas, Chief Curry wanted the detective's car there. It was canceled. Will Fritz wanted his men there. They were canceled the day before. Here's Seth Canner. Will Fritz's men called off night before by Secret Service had planned to ride a closed car with machine guns and car behind President. And police and military lined the streets and buildings. And here we go, just basically saying that. This is just proving that. And again, this is in Pueblo, Colorado, not foreign trips, domestic trips. There's all the arrows of the National Guardsmen on top of the roof as well, guarding president. That's how presidents lived in open cars before. Speed, good intelligence, military men lined the street, police lined the street facing the crowd, many undercover detectives in the crowds, agents on or near the rear of the car, partial bubble sometimes. It's not just luck rubbing a rabbit's foot. There's a reason why presidents live. And you can't think of today with terrorism and looking at even these pictures, oh, he's a sitting duck. You got to think of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. You got to think of a time when it was a single, rifle shot. It was a pistol. It was before terrorism. So you got to put yourself in the context of the time. And again, there's a reason why presidents lived back then. Police on rooftops, police on rooftops. See if there's anything else. Like the Marines, you saw the videos, the Marines. This is 4 days before Dallas. There's the military police lining the streets. The ranch-style one-story building. That's how they protected them. Don't have to worry about pulling a rifle out of a window there. Less obvious will be the thousands of plainclothesmen and West German police in the crowds. This is 1957, New York, Eisenhower. Partial bubble top, policemen on motorcycles and horseback, all surrounding a limousine. 1957, they could afford Eisenhower that president, protection. Don't fret, JFK will be safe abroad. And again, these are contemporary articles before the assassination. Yet in Dallas, Secret Service all secure. And famously, Kellerman said the advanced security precautions are the most stringent and thorough ever in the Secret Service history. And I think I only got a couple more minutes. So just one thing real quick. Agent Thomas Shipman, driver of Kennedy's limousine, he died of an alleged heart attack at Camp David, October 14th, 1963. Spoke to his family, said he had a clean bill of health. He was a Secret Service agent assigned to drive the car. He believed he was going to be the driver in Dallas. He died because he had family in Dallas. And obviously, he ended up being Greer, and Greer was very incompetent. There's Shipman driving JFK and Jackie. There's Shipman driving Kennedy in D.C. He died again a month before. I only found this out like 20 years ago, and a little old me out in the wilderness found out these gentlemen passed away. And the interesting thing, good, I'm almost done here. Chuck Zaboral, agent on the rear of the car, he served in the Marines of Oswald. What a coincidence. If that's a coincidence, it's a coincidence. But he served Camp Pendleton at the very same time of Oswald. So that's pretty crazy. My 3 suspects are Floyd Boring, who was the planner of the Texas trip, who was the man who gave out all the advance assignments and did all the advance work, and basically was the one who conveyed about JFK not wanting the agents on the car. Yeah, he tells me adamantly there's no truth to that. And again, I'll just fly through these. Yeah, Emory Roberts was my second suspect. He was the agent who called back the men at Love Field and was in charge of the agents of the follow-up car, who did nothing. You saw that video before. Here he is, Emory Roberts. The next day, we saw the Umbrella Man in the Zapruder film. The next day, here's Emory Roberts holding up an umbrella for LBJ. Hello, you're supposed to be an agent. Worry about your pistol. Don't worry about an umbrella for LBJ. Jerry Kivett, looked like it's disgust to me. Emory Roberts went on to be LBJ's receptionist. So a current Secret Service, still current agent, went on to be LBJ's receptionist. Strange, to put it mildly. And yeah, it's basically Bill Greer is my final one. Bill Greer. This will be the final clip. It's only 40 seconds. Let Dave Powers speak for me.
The president's friend, Dave Powers, now director of the Kennedy Library in Boston, remembers talking to a grief-stricken Bill Greer, the Secret Service agent who drove Kennedy's car. What if they'd sped out of Dealey Plaza after the first shots, but before the fatal one?
I found it always, and so did he, but Bill, all those agents were very close to us, and that they felt so bad.
If the driver of the president's car had stepped on the gas after the first 2 shots,
yes, that president would be alive today, and he'd be 71 years old, and he'd be the director here.
Hi, Vince. I haven't heard the name Bill Adams for years. I dealt with him, too. I got just a couple of quick things to go through here because I think they're important. First of all, I'm acknowledged briefly in the Survivor's Guilt book. That book, everyone should buy that book. It is a fantastic book, absolutely fantastic. I recruited him for the Men Who Killed Kennedy series, and I'm very proud of that. And he should have had more time in that series. I had no anything, but I agree with that. You mentioned Jim Bishop. and I've dealt with Jim Bishop people, okay? Jim Bishop was a Del Charo regular. He was there. He was an unbelievable supporter of Clint Murchison. In all of I have his newspaper articles in the 50s and the 60s, always supporting the 27.5% oil depletion allowance, always supporting oil, always supporting the mob, always supporting Hoover and the FBI, always supporting Rowley. Rowley contributed to that book and big time, and he praises Rowley constantly. Rowley's the first man to shake LBJ's hand when he gets off Air Force One. When Manchester kept hammering LBJ to let me interview you for my book, he kept putting him off and putting him off and putting him off. He finally said, okay, come on over, I'll interview. He went over, and instead of LBJ, there was a guy sitting there. You ask me questions, and I'll answer the way LBJ would. And there was a squawk box. I'm almost done. There was a squawk box. It's obviously Johnson on the squawk box. And every time the guy who was answering said something that Johnson didn't like, the little red light would go on, and the guy had to run in the back and get the right answer and come back and amend it. That man was Jack Valenti, okay? Jack Valenti, all right? It's Valenti who is the man who invited Kennedy to the Albert Thomas dinner the night before. That's how they got him there. Not all that other stuff, just like you point out, all the other lies and myths, okay? Then when then Bishop says, I'm gonna write a book on the assassination, he goes to LBJ, no problem. LBJ and Lady Bird cooperate with Bishop completely. And finally, I met Dave Powers. I talked about him yesterday. He absolutely believed in a Graciano right shooter, and I showed him a gunman on the other no, and his eyes nearly came out of his head. I think that covers everything. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, give me another round of applause for Vince Palamara.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks.
And have him assist me here. We have a little something special here for Vince. On behalf of the JFK Assassination Conference, we are awarding him with the Justice for John F. Kennedy Award from the JFK Assassination Conference for 2019. I want to say a little bit about Vince. Before he came in the room, I asked him about how he got involved with this, and he said that Penn Jones Jr. had advised him to pick a topic and research the hell out of it. I think he took Penn Jones' admonishment quite well. When I think about Secret Service, there's nothing else that comes to my mind other than Vince Palamara. He is the source authority, is he not? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I read on the internet, and you know how reliable that can be, that you started this in 1988. Yeah. Were you in the 3rd grade or what?
I began my interest in the assassination in 1978. I was 12, so I was 22. I was 22. Wow. My mom and dad still doing great. Huge Kennedy fan. My mom still cries on certain occasions about President Kennedy. It really affected them deeply. So it affected me. I was born in 1966 after the fact, you know, and always has struck a chord with me, and then the rest is history. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm also interested in his life, too, but something about his assassination, and it would just make a long story very short. Like very short, like 30 seconds. What it boils down to is I got 4 days, that book, I know, I should know this, the Associated Press, UPI. Anyway, and there's a picture in there of Clint Hill by a limousine. I was interested in the show called The Wild Wild West, fictional show about the 19th century Secret Service, Robert Conrad. So I was already interested in Secret Service in a weird sort of way. I said, who is that, Mom? She said, well, that's Agent Clint Hill. Some reason it just resonated for me. From that moment on, I just started looking at the Secret Service. It was all secondary sources at first, but then I got into primary sources, and it was in the early 90s. In fact, I don't know if Dr. Weck's still here. He called me in 1991, and he doesn't even know. I don't think he was actually a linchpin for me. He says, you know what you should do? Because I even admitted at the time in 1991, I didn't actually speak to any agents. He says, you should do that. You should maybe think about primary research, in his wonderful voice. And I started to do that. So actually, Dr. Weck, wherever you are, it's your main impetus as well. So my parents and Dr. Weck. Yep.
All right. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, Vince Palamara.